Well, hey folks, it's your old pal King Waspinator. Welcome back to Total Party Skills. I'm going to assume, because I'm a tiny channel, that more than a few of you watching this have probably already subscribed to Dungeon Craft and Professor DM. He did a little video this morning where he was going through some of the financial news involving, the stuff going on at the upper levels and echelons of Hasbro, and the fact that Wizards of the Coast's commander in chief is now going to be the top dog there at Hasbro. And go and watch the video. I don't have the kind of setup where I can scroll through and show you all an article and stuff as I read it, and that's not really the kind of channel I'm trying to do. I'm more like editorial speculation when it comes to these kinds of things. Anyway, long story short, there's this investment company that's trying to embed themselves now into Hasbro by getting more of their members onto the board of directors under the new leadership, which, as I said, is the guy who was running Wizards of the Coast up until now. I don't normally follow financial shit or also like the corporate level stuff. I'm more interested in the practical realities of what's actually in the game books, and I care less about the administrative side of things most of the time. So I'm not going to pretend like I know the cat's name, but the dude who was running Wizards of the Coast, who's now going to be CEO of Hasbro, they want to use his change of regime as a chance to get themselves up in there. And apparently, Dungeons and Dragons and Wizards of the Coast in general, surprisingly, in the new pandemic era, has been the most profitable part of Hasbro's portfolio. It's beating Transformers and all their toy sales, all that kind of shit. It's probably a chunk of why we have the Critical Role cartoon that just came out, and apparently Netflix is going to be doing some sort of live action D&D, and obviously they've been making this D&D film for theaters starring Chris Pine and Hugh Grant. So we'll see how that goes. Apparently, though, this investment company called Alta Fox, the names these fucking people give these things, they value Wizards of the Coast as being worth $13 billion, and situating D&D as being more primary to that than Magic the Gathering right now. So we've now find ourselves in a world where Dungeons and Dragons is arguably a more valuable property than Star Wars. So, what can we expect from this kind of news? Well, it's probably they want to spin Wizards of the Coast back off into its own company, apparently, because of this. Which, okay, isn't that where they started from? All right. With that kind of valuation, I mean that means that they're now going to be sitting on that same kind of brand level. Then D&D is now going to be considered to be at the same place as Star Trek and Star Wars and Marvel and DC in terms of companies running these things. Now, this is all very dangerous. We can look to Hollywood and what's happened to Hollywood over the last 50 years as Hollywood has become increasingly more corporatized and become more and more divorced from independent creators coming in with a vision and doing a thing that becomes popular. Instead, it's all dictated from the top down based on proven marketing models and all that kind of stuff. And so we can expect even more of that to come into D&D now. I mean, we've already a good chunk of what people are actually really complaining about when they're complaining about 5th edition D&D and even 4th edition D&D. What they're seeing as political changes are their business political changes, because they're trying to increase mass market appeal and all that kind of stuff. So we can expect even more of that. If the shows they are putting out and the movie gains any traction, can role-playing games be the replacement for what's going to be the next Hollywood thing? Westerns came and went. Film noir came and went. Comic book movies have come, and we're to the point now where people are saying that Peacemaker's the best comic book show ever made, and I watched it and I quite enjoyed it. But man, is that a sign that we're finally kind of at the bottom of that barrel, perhaps? So what's going to be the next thing? Is it going to be film and television based on role-playing game properties? with D&D situated to be the Marvel of that whole thing, and maybe we can get some White Wolf or some Cyberpunk, or maybe get like some really terrible off-brand Pathmaker, Pathfinder. Never got into them. Type shows, low budget, Canadian ripoff, filmed in Vancouver. Whereas, in LA, they'll be filming that primo Forgotten Realms shit. It could be like within 10 years, we could have a movie about Drizzt in theaters and spin off a whole Drizzt trilogy. Maybe they can cast Michael B. Jordan to play Drizzt. We'll see. $13 billion, man, that's going to go to people's heads. That's now starting to value the property that is D&D to a point where maybe the cost of hiring all the lawyers it would take to force everyone who's been making OGL products to have to pull their stuff off the market because they want to revoke the Open Games license, up to a point that it was always going to be kind of like a financial nightmare just to be able to like deal with that headache. But now we're getting up to like Disney kind of money. In fact, hell, like what if Disney were to buy Wizards of the Coast if Hasbro successfully spins them off as their own kind of in-house brand, especially if they got products to sell and branded shit. Like they could spend a couple $1 billion on a whole Drizzt themed part of Disney World in Florida and Shanghai. It'll be amazing. So I don't know. Like, I'm only going to give stuff like, I'll give it like a 5% chance that there might be anything there on the whole, like, this could crush the OGL. But I'm not going to give it like 100% chance of unlikelihood either. The more value D&D has, the more interest that people who are completely, just corporate investors who are entirely 100% divorced from this industry and the hobby, they're not gonna, God, their level of uncaring, they're only gonna care about what makes money. Just like the types of movie executives who greenlight shit like Lord of the Rings of Power. Like in the end, it's only going to matter about whether or not it made whatever kind of profit they were hoping to make. It's not going to matter whether or not it's true to its origins, or whether or not the original older fans who helped build it up in the first place like it or not. Who gives a shit about them? They've done their job. They've been used, and they're no longer useful. In fact, they're something of a drag. Because they feel like they somehow have some sort of ownership over this thing that we paid $13 billion for. Now it's ours. It's all mine. You'll be watching Chris Pine play D&D characters for years to come, and you will like it. Oh my God, are you going to like it so much? I don't know. I take this all as bad news. I'm like, God, if they rip out the OGL license, like that could collapse Drive-Thru RPG, and then like any other independent people who are on there who aren't writing D20 based materials are just as fucked, even though like they haven't done anything to violate the almighty corporate intellectual property holding rights. Blessed be thy name. Peace be upon them. Well, anyway, I guess that's the news. Certainly don't want to talk about any of the real world shit. I mean, like, all this could be a moot point if things spin out of control too badly in parts of the planet that you couldn't even find on a map anyway, so who cares? Our main questions in life are, dog-ass hedonistic things that are all just about ourselves. So you don't want to hear about the other part of the world. No, you want to know that your childhood hobby is going to thrive in a new economic model of the metaverse, where perfect advertising will finally be achieved. Every last square inch of our field of vision will be telling us about all these wonderful products that we just can't wait to buy with the money that we can't have because they don't want to hire anyone anymore. Oh.